They say some legacies are worth millions, but what if yours came with a warning? Never open the cellar. My name is Emily Carter, and 3 months ago, I had a career, a fiancé, and a future in London's buzzing financial district. Now, I'm standing alone in front of a crumbling stone cottage in a forgotten Welsh village, clutching a rusted key and a letter that ended with, "Forgive me, child." There are truths buried in that house you deserve to know. The house belonged to grandmother Evelyn Carter, my late father's estranged mother, a woman none of us had seen since I was 7. When I asked about her growing up, my dad would just grunt and say, "She was touched by shadows." I never understood what he meant. She passed away last winter quietly, mysteriously, without fanfare. Her solicitor, a twitchy man with nervous hands, contacted me alone. "You've inherited the Carwyn cottage," he said. "You, and only you." No mention of my dad. No mention of my older brother, James Carter. Was this a mistake? I asked. He just shook his head and whispered, "She made it very clear. She left behind something only you should find." I didn't know whether to be flattered or creeped out. At first, I ignored it. Why would I care about some dusty house in the middle of nowhere, left to rot by a woman I barely knew? But then life unraveled. My fiancé cheated with his secretary. My job was restructured out of existence. And James? He moved to Canada and said I should take a gap year and find my zen. Instead, I found myself driving through the narrow, mist-wrapped roads of rural Wales with nothing but a backpack, an old journal she left me, and the key. From the outside, the cottage looks like something out of a Gothic novel. Crooked chimney, moss-covered stones, wild ivy climbing the windows like hungry fingers. It sits on the edge of the village of Bryn Derwin, a place that doesn't even exist on Google Maps. No one greeted me when I arrived. The few villagers I passed turned their eyes away. One woman muttered something in Welsh and clutched a wooden charm around her neck. And then came the note, taped to the inside of the front door, written in my grandmother's unmistakably elegant cursive. "Emily, trust no one, not even your own memories. Start in the cellar, but be careful, it remembers you." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I explored the house, and what a house it was. Everything inside was untouched, frozen in time. A teacup on a saucer by the window, yellowed books with brittle pages, a velvet armchair by the fireplace still bearing the shape of a person who once sat there night after night. Dust danced in the morning light like quiet ghosts. And then, I found the cellar door, hidden beneath a loose rug in the pantry, bolted with not one, but 3 iron locks. I used the rusted key and it opened with a heavy thunk like something alive had been waiting behind it. I should have stopped there, but curiosity is a poison. I stepped down the creaking wooden steps, flashlight in hand. The air grew colder, denser, like it was resisting me. The cellar wasn't large, but what it held was strange. No wine, no tools, no clutter, just a circle, carved into the stone floor with symbols I didn't recognize. And in the center, a mirror, cracked, but covered with a deep red cloth. I reached out. My fingertips brushed the edge of the cloth and something flickered at the edge of my vision. A memory? No, hallucination. A child's laugh echoed faintly. My own? I pulled back. My chest was tight. The air felt wrong. And then I saw it carved into the wooden beam above the mirror in sharp, jagged letters. "The firstborn returns. Blood awakens." I stumbled backward, heart racing. What the hell had I just found? That night, I dreamt of fire, a forest burning, screams, my father, younger, dragging someone me into the woods, away from something unseen. I woke up drenched in sweat, the room freezing despite the summer night. The journal my grandmother left me sat open on the bedside table, even though I swear I hadn't touched it, and written in new ink a message I hadn't seen before. "Emily, they erased everything, but you can remember. If you're brave enough." Over the next few days, things got worse. Doors creaked open in the night. I'd find muddy footprints on the floor, small ones, like a child's, even though I hadn't left the house. One evening, I caught sight of a figure in the woods just beyond the back garden. A tall woman in black with a veil standing utterly still. But when I blinked, she was gone. I tried calling James. No answer. I emailed the solicitor. His office had been cleared out, vanished. And still, I couldn't leave. Something in that house had its claws in me. Not in a horror movie kind of way, but deeper, like it was tangled in my past, my family, my identity. Then I found the photograph. Hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace, a black and white picture of a woman holding a baby. The woman was not my grandmother. And the baby? She had my eyes. The back of the photo said, "For Emily." Before they took you away, before they forgot who you were. I couldn't breathe. My family lied. I began piecing things together. My grandmother wasn't crazy. She was protecting me. The cellar, the symbols, the mirror, it was all part of something ancient, a ritual, one that had to do with firstborn daughters, passed down through generations. But for what? And why did my father cut ties with her? Why did he pretend she never existed? And then, I remembered. A birthday, my 7th, a forest, a ritual, a scream, a fire. The deeper I dug into my grandmother's house, the more I began to question if I was even human. I couldn't sleep again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes. The burning forest, my father screaming, the strange woman in the veil watching from the trees. But the worst part, that feeling like I was being remembered by something old, something that had been waiting for me to return. The cottage didn't creak anymore. It sighed like it knew I was finally starting to understand. The morning sun filtered through stained glass in the hallway, throwing blood-colored light onto the wooden floor. I stood there staring at it, heart pounding. And then I did something reckless. I pulled the cloth off the mirror in the cellar. It was cracked, 7 fractures splitting the glass like spiderwebs. But what I saw reflected was not me. It was me as a child, 7 years old, wearing a white dress, crying. I stood in the woods, holding a candle, whispering something in Welsh I couldn't understand. I stumbled backward, slamming the cloth over the mirror again. But the vision stayed burned behind my eyes. What was that? I needed answers. I took my grandmother's journal to the village. I didn't know where else to go. The pub was the only place with lights on. Old wooden beams, stone floors, a hearth that looked like it hadn't gone cold in 100 years. The barkeep, a woman with graying hair and tired eyes, looked up as I entered. "Ah," she said softly, "you're her granddaughter." Her tone didn't have warmth, just recognition. Maybe pity? "She used to come here every winter," the barkeep continued. "Always sat in that same corner with her books. Wouldn't speak to anyone. Just watched the door." I hesitated, then pulled out the journal. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "Where did you get that?" "It was hers. She left it for me." The woman hesitated, then leaned in. "There are things in this village we don't speak of. Old things. Your grandmother. She didn't forget. She remembered. That's why she stayed, even when your father begged her to leave. My dad never told me anything about this place." She nodded slowly. "Because he was afraid." I left the pub with more questions than answers. But one thing stuck with me, something the barkeep had said just before I left. Some bloodlines don't die. They sleep until the right soul comes home. When I got back to the cottage, there was something waiting on the front step. A box, wooden, bound in iron. It hadn't been there that morning. I opened it slowly. Inside was a bundle wrapped in cloth, and when I unfolded it, my breath caught. A locket, gold, familiar. I'd seen it before in the photograph of the woman holding the baby. When I opened it, a tiny piece of paper fell out. It read, "Emily, this once belonged to your mother, your real mother. She died to protect you." My hands shook. I had spent my life believing my parents were my biological mother and father. But now, everything cracked wide open. Who was the woman in the photo? Was she the one who raised me before I was taken? Did my father steal me away from her? And why? The journal offered no names, no clear answers, only hints, symbols, Welsh runes, ritual notes scribbled in frantic ink, and one phrase that kept appearing again and again, the mark of the hollowborn. That night, I dreamt again. Only this time, I was awake. I saw my bedroom door open slowly by itself. I saw a small figure walk in. A girl, pale, hair covering her face, barefoot. She stood at the edge of my bed and whispered, "Don't forget again." And then she vanished. I lit every candle I could find and didn't sleep a second. The next day, I found a passage in the journal that chilled me. "The Hollowborn are first daughters of the bloodline, marked by the old forest to carry the memory of those erased. Their dreams are not dreams. Their eyes are the key, and the mirror will test their truth." I looked in the mirror in the bathroom. Something shimmered behind my pupils, and suddenly, it all came back. The birthday, the ritual in the woods, the way the woman, the one I now believe was my real mother, had knelt before me, singing in a language I didn't know. Then fire, my father's voice shouting, Take her, now, and her scream. I ran back to the cellar. This time, I didn't hesitate. I touched the symbols carved in the floor, whispered the words from the journal, and the mirror pulsed. The crack began to glow faintly, red like dying embers, and for a moment, I saw not my reflection but a door, a stone arch, a forest beyond it, and someone waiting on the other side. A woman, eyes just like mine. She reached out her hand. Emily, wake up. That's when I heard the front door slam. I rushed up the cellar steps, heart pounding, only to find James standing in the hallway. He looked tired, older, uneasy. What the hell are you doing here? I asked, breathless. He held up his phone. You haven't answered for days. You sounded off. I stared at him. For a moment, I wanted to cry, hug him, say I was glad he came, but something stopped me. There was guilt in his eyes. What aren't you telling me? I whispered. He didn't answer, not at first. Then he stepped forward and placed a folded letter on the table. I found this after Dad died, he said. I was going to burn it, but something told me to let you see it first. I unfolded the letter with shaking hands. It was in my father's handwriting. Emily was never supposed to remember. I did what I had to do. Her mother was dangerous. The ritual was already beginning. I had to stop it. I had to save my daughter before the bloodline awakened in her, before she became one of them. But it's too late. I think the mirror called her. God help us all. I sat there, stunned. James tried to speak, but I raised a hand. Did you know? He nodded slowly. Bits and pieces. I overheard them fighting when I was a teen. I thought they were just paranoid stories. But then Gran left you this house, and when I looked into it, Emily, do you know what this land used to be? I shook my head. It's where the last blood ritual of the Hollowborn was performed, centuries ago. I stared at him. So what am I? I asked, voice cracking. He looked terrified when he answered, you're the last of the Hollowborn. I always thought my family's secrets were buried in the past, but now they're knocking on the door and they know my name. I stared at my brother. The room around us was dead silent. Even the birds outside had stopped singing. It was as if the house itself was holding its breath. You knew? I asked again. All these years? I didn't know everything, James said, eyes lowered. But I knew there was a reason you never remembered your early childhood. Why Dad changed after that birthday. He swallowed hard. I used to hear him arguing with Mum at night, saying things like the bloodline will take her back and we can't let her near the forest. I thought it was just grief or trauma. But when I saw Gran's will and that she left everything to you, not to either of us, I knew something bigger was happening. I sat down at the old dining table. My fingers trembled. So what now? I whispered. What am I supposed to do? He pulled out the journal and flipped to a passage I hadn't noticed before. A folded page almost glued shut by age. He read aloud. When the Hollowborn child comes of age, she must choose. Suppress the blood and live among the veiled, or awaken and complete what was left undone. The forest will call her. The mirror will open, but only truth will unlock the gate. That night, I couldn't sleep again. But something was different. I didn't just feel afraid. I felt watched. The dreams came louder, more vivid. My real mother, the woman in the locket, stood in a clearing, arms outstretched. She was singing. The sky above her cracked like thunder, but the trees bowed toward her voice. In her hands, she held a crown made of ash and bone. She looked at me and said, "It's time, Emily." And then I woke up to find my bedroom window wide open and a trail of ash leading downstairs. James and I followed it the next morning. It led back to the cellar. The mirror had changed again. The cracks were glowing. This time, it reflected not a door but a forest I recognized, a place from my dreams. I touched the glass, and this time, it yielded. My hand didn't stop at the surface. It sank through. James pulled me back before I could step in entirely. Emily, wait, he said, shaking. We don't know what's on the other side. I think we do, I whispered. It's where she's waiting. Who? I looked at him, my voice quiet but certain. My mother. The real one. We decided to prepare. James stayed close. He helped me dig through the attic where Gran had hidden more than just artifacts. She had preserved everything from the night of the fire. Photos, drawings, notes, and one disturbing detail we hadn't known. There was a third person in the original ritual circle with my mother and me. Someone cloaked in shadow. A male figure with strange symbols painted on his hands, and written beneath it in my grandmother's delicate handwriting. The forest took one of them that night, but the other lives. He waits, he watches. The Hollowborn are never alone. I shivered. Do you think Dad knew this person? I asked. James nodded grimly. I think he was that person. The next evening, a knock came at the door. We froze. No one was expected. Outside stood an old man, weathered, cloaked. He had white eyes like frost and skin marked with the same carved runes from the journal. I am Gideon, he said softly, the Watcher, the last of the forest bound, and I have come to see if you are ready. We let him in. His voice was like wind through leaves, soft, ancient, strange. He told us the truth. The Hollowborn line goes back centuries, he said. It was never about magic. It was about memory. The firstborn daughters carried the weight of forgotten grief and had the power to unbury it. He turned to me. But when your mother performed the ritual of remembrance, your father intervened. He feared what you would awaken. He tried to sever the line. But you can't bury blood with silence. He reached into his cloak and pulled out a knife, not to harm, but to offer. This is the blade of Serafina, he said, your ancestor, the one who first touched the mirror and walked between the worlds. I stared at it. It shimmered not with light, but with memory. And suddenly, the cellar door slammed shut behind us. The mirror was glowing again, brighter, burning, as if it felt his presence. Gideon stepped back. It's opening now, he said. You have a choice. James grabbed my arm. Don't, not yet. But my heart was already moving before my feet. I stepped into the glass. There was no pain, only wind. I stood in the same forest from my dreams, but now it was real moss underfoot, branches clawing the sky. Birds with red eyes flew above me in slow circles. And then, she stepped out from behind the trees. The woman from the photo, my mother. She hadn't aged a day. I've been waiting, she said, voice thick with emotion. They took you from me. I ran to her. She wrapped her arms around me, and for the first time in years, I wept not from fear, but from the aching sense of coming home. You have her eyes, she whispered. You always did. She told me everything. The Hollowborn weren't monsters. They were guardians, protectors of truth passed through blood and bone. But people feared truth, so they turned stories into superstition, rituals into warnings. Your father tried to protect you, she said, but in doing so, he ripped you away from who you were. You are the last now, she said, touching my face. The final Hollowborn. You have to decide what will be remembered, and what must be left behind. When I stepped back through the mirror, James was waiting. I told him everything, and that night, we sat by the fire, flipping through Grand's journal, no longer afraid of the words. We understood now, the crown, the ash, the mirror, the inheritance. It wasn't about land or legacy, it was about truth, and truth, once awakened, doesn't sleep again. Blood remembers, but it also bleeds, especially when the ones you trust the most are the ones holding the knife. I thought visiting the forest realm would bring peace. Instead, it brought questions. Since returning through the mirror, I hadn't been the same. My sleep felt like borrowed time. My waking moments felt like pages turning, but I wasn't the one writing them anymore. James tried to act normal, but I could feel the tension in his voice, like he was afraid of me, or maybe afraid for me. Gideon stayed in the attic most days, meditating, chanting, preparing something he wouldn't talk about yet. And the house was changing. Wooden floors groaned even when no one walked on them. The cellar mirror pulsed with a heartbeat I could feel in my bones. And shadows in corners seemed to whisper my name. Emily, soft, repeating, always just beneath hearing. Then came the letter. It arrived in the morning, no postmark, no stamp. Slipped under the door. My hands trembled as I opened it. Emily, he lied to you. Come to the old chapel in the forest at dusk. Come alone, and bring the locket. There was no signature, but I knew who it was. My father. James begged me not to go. You don't know what he wants, he argued. What if it's a trap? I turned to him. I have to know. I need to hear it from him. And if he tries to hurt you again? I looked him straight in the eye. Then this time, I won't be a child. The chapel sat in ruins about a mile into the forest. The trees seemed to lean toward it, as if trying to listen to the secrets buried beneath its broken stones. Moss covered the walls. Vines strangled the bell tower, a place once sacred, now forgotten. Except he was there, standing near the altar, hands folded, hair streaked with silver now. He looked older, smaller, but his presence still made my stomach knot. Emily, he said, voice cracked and hoarse. I didn't answer, just held up the locket. He smiled sadly. She kept it then. She died because of you, I said quietly. Didn't she? He looked away. She would have turned you into a weapon, he said. Don't you understand? Your mother. She was the last Hollowborn who remembered. The others forgot. But she remembered too much. She would have used you to bring back the blood rights, to awaken the old gods. I stepped closer. You don't get to rewrite this story to make yourself the hero. You kidnapped me. You erased my memories. I saved you, he said, tears welling in his eyes. I gave you a normal life, but it was a lie. Silence. And then he said something that chilled me. She's not the only one who's been watching you, Emily. The forest has. Others. That night, I confronted Gideon. You knew, I said. Didn't you? He didn't deny it. The forest is not loyal to blood. It is loyal to balance. If you awaken what sleeps too quickly, it will retaliate. I backed away. Retaliate how? There are others who want the mirror open, he said grimly. And they are not like your mother. They want power, not remembrance. And then, the lights flickered. The air grew cold. A scream pierced the night from the woods. I ran outside, barefoot, heart hammering. James followed, and there, hanging from the tree line, swaying in the wind, was a wooden effigy in my likeness, with the locket nailed through its chest. We weren't alone anymore. Someone else was in the forest, and they wanted me gone. The next morning, Gideon was gone, vanished without a trace. James and I searched the attic, the cellar, the clearing behind the house. Only one thing remained, the blade of Serafina, laid on the altar in the cellar, and covered in ash. And then I made a decision. We had run from the truth for too long. It was time to finish what was started. I prepared for the full ritual, not to awaken gods, not to rule over anything, but to restore the broken lineage of the Hollowborn, to give memory back to the bloodline that was stolen. James tried to talk me out of it, said it would change me, said I wouldn't be the sister he remembered, but I wasn't that sister anymore. Not since I touched the mirror. That night, under the full moon, I entered the forest alone, wearing my mother's locket, carrying Serafina's blade, and humming the song she used to sing in my dreams. The trees opened for me, and in the center of the clearing, the old stones of the original circle still stood. I stepped inside. The symbols ignited in blue fire, and then, I cut my palm, let the blood fall onto the stone, and whispered the words from the journal. Let the Hollowborn remember. Let the blood return. Let the past speak again. The wind roared, the earth shook, and the forest answered, not in words, not in visions, but with a presence. And behind me, the mirror formed mid-air, like a portal burning with silver light. My mother appeared beside me, her spirit, perhaps, or something more. She didn't speak, just nodded. It was time. And that's when I heard the gunshot. I turned. James stood at the edge of the circle, eyes wild, holding a rifle. I can't let you do this, he shouted. I won't lose you again. I stared at him, heartbreaking. James, I whispered, please, I'm not becoming a monster. I'm becoming who I always was. He stepped forward. I don't believe that, he said, voice trembling. I think you're possessed. This whole thing, it's changed you. I dropped the blade, stepped toward him. Then shoot me, I said, arms out. If you believe that, shoot me. He didn't. He dropped the rifle and collapsed to his knees. I just want my sister back, he sobbed. I knelt beside him. You never lost me, I said gently. You just didn't know who I really was. And with that, I stepped through the mirror one last time. We inherit more than blood. We inherit the silence, the pain, the secrets no one dared to speak. But someone always has to be the one who opens the door. Stepping through the mirror was like being reborn. The wind turned to whispers. The trees became voices. And the forest, it breathed. This time, the realm was not dreamlike. It was sharp, vivid, real, the colors deeper, the sounds ancient. I stood in a place lost between worlds, the sacred ground of the Hollowborn. Around me, stone monoliths rose from moss-covered hills. The air shimmered with a silver mist. The ancestors stood in a circle, just outside the light, not fully visible, but felt, present. And in the center of them all, was her, my mother. Not a vision, not a spirit, not a memory. Alive. She stepped forward, holding out her hand. Her voice sang through me like thunder and violin strings all at once. Emily, my child, you've come home at last. The circle is unbroken. Tears streamed down my face. I thought I was too late, I whispered. She smiled. You are right on time. She led me to the heart tree, a massive, silver-barked oak at the center of the forest. Its roots pulsed with light, its branches stretched across the sky like veins. This is the source of our remembering, she explained. The bloodlines that were erased. Their truths live here. The world above has forgotten them, but you can give them voice again. And then she showed me the cost. To restore the Hollowborn lineage, I had to give up the world I came from. My name, my face, my family's memory of me, everything. I hesitated, the thought of losing James, but then I remembered his words. I just want my sister back. And I realized, the sister he remembered never truly existed. She was a mask, a shadow. This was the real me. So I chose. I touched the heart tree. A blinding light burst from its core, not burning, but searing the truth into every cell of my being. I remembered everything, every past Hollowborn, every ritual, every silenced woman, every lost child, and I wept for them. I became their memory. And then, I woke up, in my bed, back in the cottage, sunlight streaming through the curtains. Was it all a dream? I rushed to the mirror in the cellar. It was dark, still, no light, no forest, but something was different. In the reflection, I saw me, but not the Emily who left. This Emily wore a silver crown made of woven ash branches. Her eyes glowed faintly, and behind her stood hundreds of silent women, watching, waiting, and I understood. The Hollowborn had returned, through me. James never spoke of that night in the forest again. In fact, he stopped speaking of me at all. Something changed in him, like he felt I'd become a story he could no longer tell. But I saw the sadness in his eyes every time he passed the cottage, and the faintest flicker of recognition. Some part of him still remembered. The villagers say the house at the edge of Bryn Derwin is cursed, that the woman who lives there doesn't age, that when she walks into the woods at night, the trees bow in her presence. Some say she's a witch, others say she's a ghost, but the truth is much simpler. I am Emily of the Hollowborn, the one who remembered, the one who remained, and I am not the last. Every full moon, I return to the mirror. I sing the old songs, I light the circle, I speak the names, and one by one, the Hollowborn girls of the village start to dream again, start to hear the voices, start to remember. Because forgetting is a wound, but remembering is a weapon. If you discovered your legacy was built on silence, would you keep it buried? Or would you set fire to the lie, even if it meant becoming the myth yourself? Tell me in the comments. Would you step through the mirror?